Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight. This is the show where I put the spotlight on a new progressive rock album that I think you guys will enjoy. I give you my impressions of it and then let you guys decide for yourselves if you want to go check it out when it comes out or whenever it's available. So today I've got the new Transatlantic live release. This is the Final Flight live at Olympia. This is their Paris show, perhaps their last show ever as a band. And it's coming out in a giant package, all kinds of goodies along with it in different formats, 3 LP, maybe even 4 LPs. I'm not even sure how many LPs on this one, but it's a big, massive track list, and there's all kinds of versions that you can get it upon. And a Blu-ray, of course, with live footage and all that kind of stuff. But today I'm just talking about the music itself. I've listened to the live album, and I'm here to talk about it a little bit. And this is going to be kind of a quick show because I feel like you've probably heard Transatlantic if you watch my channel regularly, so it shouldn't be anything to really introduce anybody to. And they're playing all pretty familiar material here, so there's not really much to go through in terms of talking about each of the songs and going in detail about what the music sounds like. I think if you're familiar at all, you should have a pretty strong idea of what this release will sound like. But as a quick overview, Transatlantic is a supergroup that formed back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Basically, the lineup has always been Neil Morse on keyboards and vocals. You've got Roy Stolt on guitar and vocals. You've got Pete Trewavas on bass and vocals. And then, of course, you've got Mike Portnoy on drums and vocals. So 4 members coming together to form a supergroup of musicians. They're all from different bands that were pretty notable in the modern progressive rock scene. Of course, Pete Trewavas from Marillion, Neil Morse from Spock's Beard at the time, Roy Stolt from the Flower Kings, and Mike Portnoy from Dream Theater. So 4 very notable bands at that time in the progressive rock scene coming together to form a very classic prog sounding band. Harkens back to all the classic artists that you enjoy from the 70s, Yes, and Genesis, and Jethro Tull, and all of those are featured and have their sound baked into this stuff. And they have 5 releases up to this point, and they went on this tour throughout 2022. And I went to see them actually on a leg of this tour back in, I believe it was April last year. They came to LA and it was quite a fun experience. I had my friend Kevin aboard and we actually sat in the front row. So it was fun to listen to this live album and re-experience that night because it was basically the same set that I heard that night. I was grateful to hear the whole set because they did start late because Neil's keyboards were broken and had to be fixed before the show. So it started almost an hour late, I think, but they were able to still play the entire show, which was really a delight for me as a super fan of the band. And I'm going to be talking later this week about their whole discography and doing a ranking show as well. So please check that video out too. But for now, I'm trying to stick to this live show. And the interesting thing about it is the band's discussions around it as they're promoting it, as they're talking about this release, that this very well may be the last concert they'll ever perform. They treated this concert as somewhat of an ending for the band. And they're a little bit coy about how they talk about this because, they're leaving the door open in case in the future that they maybe do reconvene for some kind of reunion or something. But there's clearly a thought that this is probably where the band ends, at least for now, which is somewhat of a sad thought for someone who's a pretty big fan of the group. But because of that, the band was very emotional about this performance, and you can even hear it in the audio that this was a very special night to them. The audience was very lively and very energetic, so that's a really cool feature of the album itself. And they just play basically a greatest hits smattering of all their best stuff, pretty much the dream set list that you could expect from them. Of course, they play the whole Absolute Universe, which was their most recent album, which is what they were touring. So they play not just a smaller condensed version, they actually play the entire thing, the big huge version, because Absolute Universe came in multiple versions: a Breath of Life abridged version, Forevermore the longer version, and then of course the Ultimate Edition, which combined the two into this big Blu-ray 5.1 makes and all that. And so they performed the ultimate version here live so that they could capture all of the facets of everything. And they just sound perfectly skilled at all of this material. It just comes off so well live. It brings new energy and life into this material and just makes for a really fun, captivating listen. And we move on from there to the Whirlwind Suite. They give a very good selection from the Whirlwind, which is one of their more celebrated albums that came about in 2009 when they basically reunited after a hiatus. And the Whirlwind Suite is just a wonder to behold. One of my favorite highlights is Rose-Colored Glasses. I think that's one of the best pieces of music of the band. Has such an emotional climax, has incredible Roy Stolt guitar soloing. It's just really cool. And this leads into We All Need Some Light, which always comes across well live. It's pretty much a staple at this point that they play this. And it's a ballad. It's very heartwarming, but they're able to really create this moment and have this sing-along kind of feel to it because everyone in the audience mostly knows the song, and you always get this little improvisation before the song hits between Roy Stolt and Neil playing a little bit together before they get into the meat of the song, which is always very pleasant. And then they do a big closing medley with all the other tracks that you want to hear from Transatlantic, all of their big epics cut into smaller bite-sized pieces to make this big really cool medley of stuff from their entire catalog. And it includes stuff like All of the Above, Stranger in Your Soul, Do With the Devil, My New World. All of that stuff is included in this big, massive medley, and it's just such an epic way to conclude things. The best ending is Stranger in Your Soul. It's hard to compete with that. To me, it's one of the big highlights of the modern prog era in total. So really great to end on that note, and it ends it in an emotional place. And Neil talks about how long they gave the standing ovation for in the audience, and you get to experience and feel that here. I'm really excited to get the Blu-ray and actually be able to watch the visuals accompany this, because I've only heard the audio up to this point. But what you get is fantastic. It's the band performing at their highest level. They just continue to get better and better with age and with time. They're just masters at their instruments. It's really smart that this came at the end of the tour when they've really worked out all the kinks and they're just really polished and really dialed in to the sound. I think that works fantastically, and every player is just playing incredibly and has a really interesting solid role to fill in the band. Pete Travis's bass is just really grounding the whole music landscape. It's just really brilliant. Mike Portnoy is always entertaining on drums, and he never misses a beat. You've got Neil Morse, who just brings the passion and really brings a great character to the keyboard parts, and Roy Stolt, who really has some great improvisations and really is able to solo and make these beautiful sounds with his instrument, with the guitar. And it's always interesting to hear what he does with each guitar solo, because it's always just a little bit different and more interesting and nuanced. And you have Ted Leonard backing them as the fifth member to fill in all of the gaps and the holes. So that's basically what you've got on order here. And if you like Transatlantic, if you like what they do, this is going to be a must-have for you. This is just an important package, and it celebrates an incredible band and brings to a close their incredible career, essentially, especially if they never continue from here. And they're hailing it a little bit as their last release, but there actually will be a following release of their Morsefest presentation that they did last year as well. But this is the last concert that they performed, so chronologically this is basically the last thing that they've done and possibly will ever do. So it's a very important release, and I think it's a must-have for people who like this band, and maybe a good entry point for people wanting to get into the modern progressive scene. There's no one better to me than Transatlantic to really personify modern progressive rock in the symphonic style, and bringing in those classic influences and playing it at such an expert level. So comes highly recommended from an admittedly Transatlantic super fan, but I just wanted to mention this one because it's a major release, at least in my world, and I wanted to give it some due here as it comes out this Friday from Inside Out. I already have it pre-ordered. I'm really excited to actually receive the physical package and to be able to watch the Blu-ray and all of that stuff. It's going to be a fun experience and fun to relive this concert, because one of the greatest joys is seeing them perform live, because they all have such great personality. They all are experts at their instruments. They just are so note perfect, and it's just gives you goosebumps all over the place to watch them live, and elevates everything to a whole new level. So that's what you get with this release. So hopefully you enjoyed this review. I know it was a little bit just of me gushing about one of my favorite bands, but that's part of what you get on this channel. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll check it out if you are interested at all in this band or in this genre. So thank you guys so much, and please just keep enjoying the music out there. Bye!